Hi everyone, welcome back to Total War Therapy, and a few months ago I watched this short video by Space Wizard about this mysterious staggered line formation. So I did some research and I found out that it's an actual modern warfare battle tactic. So I just tried it in Total War Warhammer 3 and this is the result. Please consider to subscribe if you wanna support the channel, and let's begin. Hi, I'm Alberto, I'm a real person, and here you will find a beginner's guide, a battle unit roster, tier list, ranking, and many shorts. So if you wanna support the channel, please consider to subscribe. First, let's start with the definition of staggered line military formation according to ChatGPT. That says that is a tactical arrangement where soldiers are aligned not in a single line like usually, but they are positioned slightly behind and offset from each other, creating a zigzag or step-like pattern. Now, for me, the main advantages are three. The first is the spacing for safety, because keeping a distance between the units, you will reduce the vulnerability to concentrated enemy fire or explosions. That, in the case of the fantasy game Total War Warhammer 3, we're talking about even the magic, the bombardments, the spells, the buffs and the debuffs. Then the improved fields of fire, because your missile units will have a clearer sight of the target, so they will avoid as much as possible the friendly fire. And then the flexibility, because with this formation will be easier to move your troops, where they are more needed. So if you see that a missile unit is in danger, you have multiple options of units that can come to help, and I will show you this later in the video. Now let's make a quick comparison between the basic formation and the staggered line formation. As you can see, in the basic formation we're gonna put the melee troops as the front line. In this case we have just 3 units, and this is one of the most important detail of this analysis, because if you have just a few troops, you cannot afford to put them to cover the flanks or the back of your army composition. That's why all these sides will be completely uncovered, unprotected, and if an enemy decides to circle you around, will be easier for him to attack you. But with the staggered formation you don't have this problem. Yes, you don't have a solid front line that can hold back all the charge of the enemy, but you have a more flexible and dynamic formation where your troop can be moved where there is more need of them. So for example, you have the unit at the front line that, even if it is a little on the left, can expand and go to the right, okay, to defend even the right flanks. And the unit that is at the back but a little on the left can go both forward if there is more need on the right, and on the left if there is more need on the left. And believe me, this is a huge advantage if you don't have many units, because of course if your army is full, so you have all the troops to cover your flanks, to cover your rear guard, so all the missile units can be protected. But you have just 2 melee units, this will be more problematic, okay? So you have to find another way, like the staggered formation, to make the army more dynamic and, to protect better your missile unit, in this case, from multiple scenarios. Of course, this formation has also some disadvantages and weaknesses. The first one, and the most clear, is that you have a very weak front line that sometimes cannot hold back all the power of the charge of the enemy army, okay? And it can be a problem for that, because if they give up, if they rout, then your missile units will be vulnerable to the enemy attacks. Then there is the problem of the high management of this formation, because for example with the checkerboard formation that I talk about in another video, you have just to hold the position with all your units, and you don't need to, it doesn't require a high level of management. But this formation that is more dynamic, it requires that, and especially for new players, that can be not that easy, okay, because you have every time to understand when is the right moment to send your troop and in which direction, okay. okay, it's better to put it on the right, on the left, where it's most needed, this unit, and this can be quite problematic. The third factor is that you may find in the situation to sacrifice some of your units, because if one layer give up, because I mean this formation is structured in different layers, and if the first melee layer is going down, then you will lose also the missile units, and you have just to hold back with the second layer. But the first layer of melee and the missile will be, will be done. You will probably lose the units in the campaign. And then there is the problem of the concentrated power, because both, if you are playing offensively, so if you are attacking or if you are defending, so for the missile units, these units will not be able to perform a concentrated attack altogether, so to give the maximum to try to overwhelm the enemy. Think about with the Korn or with the Slanesh, where you have to attack with all your units all together the enemy army. It's impossible to do it with the staggered formation, and if you have to defend, you will not have all the different missile units deployed together that will fire at the same target, for the concentrated fire. But there can be there is the chance that one missile units will be so at the back that will not be able to shoot at the target, because the target is not within its reach. So in all these situations, you should prefer the basic formation. But as I said, if you are running out of units, you can consider to use this new innovative staggered line formation, because it can be quite useful. Let's start with the most basic army composition, with just a couple of melee infantry units and one single missile infantry unit. We chose as the Lord Magistrate because it's a great support that will not affect the formation. As you can see, we decided to expand the formation of the unit at the front, so in this way it can try to hold multiple units at the same time, and we decided to bring forward even the unit that was at the back. This because the enemy is performing a frontal attack, okay? They are not trying to circle us around with some fast units. But at the same time, you saw that the situation was more flexible, okay? We decided to use the basic formation, but we had the chance to use our back unit to defend our archers, our crossbowmen, from the attacks to the flank. And with this kind of strategy, as you can see, there is the unit that is trying to circle us around a little too wide, because I mean it's still the AI, but then they are going to attack our flank, and they will encounter our unit that, since it was in a more dynamic position, it was able to protect you from the attack at the front and from the attack at the flank. And as you can see, our missile units in this scenario is still able to fire at the target, because when you use the basic formation, the enemy will be all engaged in melee with your front line, so your missile units will be useless, okay, for that period of time. But here you can just keep shooting at the enemy that are routing, or there is a little room at the side of the engagement between the different units of yours and of the enemy that they can still shoot at, and this can be quite useful over the battle. Of course, as I told you, this formation is preferable if you don't have many units, because if you have enough melee infantry to protect your flanks, to protect the back of your army formation, at that point you may not need it. But in case of limited number, you have to find a way to make your melee units more flexible, so to be able to address multiple situations if the enemy decides to attack you at the front, at the flank, at the back, and so on. And that's why this formation may be very powerful. The second army composition that we're gonna test is consisting of 3 melee infantry units, 1 regiment of crossbowmen, and 1 artillery piece. Now, what I would like you to notice is that even if there are not 4 units to protect the artillery piece from all the different sides, the front, the 2 sides directions, and the back, you will offer the same level of coverage with just 2 units, okay? Because 1 unit will cover the front and the right, and the other unit at the back will cover the back and the left. So it's it's a best way to optimize your resources, because if you don't have money to afford all the different units, you can use just 2 to make the work of 4. And you cannot do that with the checkerboard formation, for example, because in that case you would need 4 different units. But the enemy, it's unlikely that it will attack you from all the different sides all together. Okay, it would just choose a couple of that. So a couple of units are perfect to do this this job. Even in this case, we saw that the enemy is trying a frontal approach, but a little on the right, so we deployed one of the units that was a little on the back. We moved this unit forward, and with the artillery piece we are targeting the unit that is trying to circle us around from the left. But at the same time, we're seeing that there is one unit that is trying to sneaking around the left, so we are sending our last melee unit to address even that other enemy troop. And then, we just work with this dynamism. You have to take fast decisions, but at the same time you have a window of time to take them, because the enemy, even if they try to circle you around, they will find some obstacles, and you have all the time to find a way to solve them. And as you can see, this formation offers a great flexibility, so if there is more units that are coming from the right, you can just switch the missile infantry with the melee infantry, and you have the space to do that. With the other formation, you don't have it, okay? It's impossible. The unit will bump into each other and they will slow down each other. But in this case, it was very smooth. So we bring one melee unit to cover our right side, and was at the left at the beginning, and the missile unit was just helping the artillery piece to address the unit was trying to attack the left. So it's very versatile, and believe me, after I found out this formation, my strategies changed drastically. And now we're gonna test our third and last army composition, here with 4 different melee infantry, a couple of swordsmen and a couple of halberds, then 3 different missile units. That one is the Iron Hail Gunner, that is a short range with the straight sight missile infantry, again our unit of crossbowmen, and the artillery piece. So it's more expanded, and not in wider but in longer, so the units at the back will be far more protected, and we have different layers, so we can even decide to sacrifice the first layer to save the other 2. That it can be okay in some in some situations where we are in danger and we are forced to do that. So we're using the same mechanics as always, but of course the power of the enemy is far more, because they have plenty more of units, but we have to try to concentrate the fire as much as possible to cover all the different holes that the enemy is trying to take advantage of. But as you can see, we managed to cover all the different sides, because even the enemies that try to circle us around, we had the protection from them, and all the missile units are quite safe, okay? They don't have any problem that is coming. Yes, then there are not many fast units in this enemy army, but I wanted to show you how it gives open breath, this army formation. You don't see all the units stuck together, but you have all the visibility to make the right decisions. Even in this case, that the first line of missile infantry is is giving up because he got attacked by a unit of Forsaken, we still have the second missile infantry line to help them, to support them with the fire. So this is great, because even if they, with all the other kinds of formations, once they attack the missile infantry, then they can just keep them all busy. But if you have different layers, it will be harder for the enemy to do so, okay? And you have all the time to replan, to recalculate your battle tactics. Consider that in this kind of scenarios, if we would have got a spellcaster, there is plenty of stuff we can do, because all the enemies are focused in some areas, and you know, instead our army is more split, and this is great, you know, for the game, because with all the magic, the buffs, the ability, you want your enemy to, you know, to you can use your army to bait the enemy, and then yeah, you can just unleash a powerful bombardment that will do the job. Here there is the enemy lord that managed to attack our missile unit again, but still, okay, it's just one unit, because we have the second that is free and safe, and they can do whatever they want. In any case, I hope that you found this content helpful. I think that these kind of strategies make you rethink the entire rules that you learn through you know, thousands of hours with this game, and it's very nice to me to bring these battle tactics of the real modern warfare to the battlefields of Total War Warhammer 3. Thank you for following me, and see you very soon.